Israeli troops are operating inside Syria. They conducted over 400 ground raids and more than 800 airstrikes in just over a year. The international community is calling it a violation of international law. Israel says it's not leaving. The timing could not be more volatile. Syria has a new government struggling to stabilize the country, Iran's influence has collapsed, and the entire Middle East seems like it's being reshaped in real time. So what is Israel actually doing in Syria and why? To answer that, we first need to understand what Iran has been doing in Syria. So the Islamic Revolution that swept Iran in 1979 was fiercely anti-Western. The US was cast as the big Satan, Israel as the little Satan. And to destroy the big one, they'd first need to destroy Israel. Ever since, Iran's leaders have repeatedly vowed to wipe Israel off the map. There's just one problem with that plan. Iran is over 1,000 miles from Israel, which made it nearly impossible to attack directly. So instead, Iran built a network of armed groups to surround Israel and do the fighting for them. The most powerful of these groups is Hezbollah, a Lebanese militia that Iran created, funds, and arms. Until recently, Hezbollah had a massive arsenal of rockets and missiles, over 100,000, aimed at Israeli cities large enough to overwhelm Israel's air defenses. And this is where Syria comes into the picture. Syria was Iran's highway to Hezbollah. Weapons and money flowed from Tehran through Syrian territory into Lebanon. For years, Israel's strategy was containment. Targeted strikes, covert operations, just enough to slow Iran's weapons transfers without triggering a full-scale military confrontation that would unleash Hezbollah's entire arsenal on Israeli cities. It seemed to be working. Then came October 7th. That's when the Iranian-backed group Hamas carried out the deadliest attack on Jews since the Shoah, taking 1,200 Israeli lives. Hamas hoped Hezbollah would join the fight, overwhelming Israel in a two-front offensive. But Hezbollah hedged its bets. They didn't go all in, but rather opened up what they called a supporting front, launching near daily rocket fire into northern Israel and displacing over 60,000 people from their homes. Israel was furious, but with a military campaign already raging in Gaza, Israel couldn't open another front against Hezbollah in the north. Not yet. So while they were kind of trading fire along the northern border, the IDF escalated its campaign against Hezbollah's supply lines in Syria. They hit airports in Aleppo, Damascus, airports that Iran was using to smuggle weapons and cash to Hezbollah. But that was nothing compared to what came next. In April 2024, Israel struck the Iranian consulate in Damascus, eliminating the Iranian commander overseeing all of the Islamic Republic's military operations in Syria and Lebanon. This was a very big deal. Iran retaliated by launching the largest barrage of drones and missiles in history directly at Israel. Hundreds of projectiles. Israel and its allies intercepted nearly all of them. But despite all of this, Iranian weapons were still getting through to Hezbollah, and one facility in particular was about to change the balance of power. Israeli intelligence had been tracking it for years, an underground complex they codenamed Deep Layer. Hidden inside a mountain, this was Iran's flagship project for supplying Hezbollah with precision-guided missiles. The facility was still being built, but once operational, it would dramatically increase Hezbollah's ability to strike deep inside Israel. The problem? Airstrikes couldn't destroy it. Israel needed boots on the ground deep inside Syria. In September 2024, they went for it. 4 helicopters carrying over 100 commandos flew 120 miles into enemy territory. 2 Apaches provided cover, fighter jets filled the sky, Navy missile boats stood ready offshore. The commandos spent hours inside the facility. They planted explosives, destroyed critical machinery, and extracted documents and equipment. Then, they vanished into the night. The Israeli Prime Minister called it one of the most important preventative operations Israel had ever taken against Iran. But targeting Hezbollah's supply lines just wasn't enough. The weapons that had already reached Hezbollah were being fired at Israeli cities nearly every day. What happened next in Lebanon reshaped the entire region, and no country more than Syria. In mid-September 2024, pagers carried by Hezbollah operatives exploded simultaneously across Lebanon, wounding thousands of fighters. Days later, Israel struck a meeting of Hezbollah's senior leadership, eliminating the man who had led the group for over 30 years and stood as one of the most powerful figures in the Middle East. Over the following weeks, Israel opened up a direct military campaign against Hezbollah, taking out 10 times more fighters than Hezbollah had lost in a 2006 confrontation with Israel. Hezbollah was crippled, and that had consequences far beyond Lebanon, because for over a decade, Hezbollah had been keeping Syria's dictator Bashar al-Assad in power. Thousands of Hezbollah fighters had deployed across Syria, helping Assad crush a rebellion that had raged since 2011. Without Hezbollah, Assad would have fallen years ago. Now, with Hezbollah devastated, they pulled their remaining fighters out of Syria to help defend Lebanon. Syrian rebels saw their chance, and on November 27th, the exact same day a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah took effect, the rebels launched an offensive. Without Hezbollah to protect him, Assad's forces collapsed. 11 days later, he fled to Moscow. For Israel, Assad's collapse was an unexpected windfall. His regime had been the bridge connecting Iran to Hezbollah, the highway for weapons, money, and fighters. With Assad gone, the bridge was severed. But Assad's collapse also created a danger. Syria's military had advanced weapons, missiles, air defense systems, possibly chemical weapons. With no one in control, all of that was up for grabs. Israel knew it had to strike, and it had to strike fast. What followed was the largest air operation in Israeli history, and that's saying a lot. Within 48 hours, hundreds of aircraft struck Syria. The Syrian Air Force was gutted, dozens of jets destroyed on the ground. The Syrian Navy lost 15 warships overnight. Strikes targeted air defense systems, missile stockpiles, and facilities suspected of housing chemical weapons. Israel claimed they destroyed the vast majority of Syria's strategic military capabilities. Syrian activists called it the most intense aerial campaign Damascus had seen in 15 years. But Israel didn't stop at airstrikes. This is where it gets even messier. As Assad fled, Israeli tanks crossed into a demilitarized zone that had separated the countries since 1974. Israeli special forces captured the Syrian side of Mount Hermon, the highest point in the region, just 20 miles from Damascus, the capital of Syria. Today, Israeli forces control about 90 square miles of this buffer zone. They've established outposts, they conduct near daily raids into Syrian villages, targeting cells linked to Hamas, ISIS, and Iran. The United Nations called Israel's presence a violation of international law. Israel says Syrian soldiers abandoned their posts and that the threat of extremist groups moving into the area is too great, and they won't leave until that threat is neutralized. But it's not just the threat to Israel that has the IDF in Syria. The Druze are a religious minority with a population split across Israel, Syria, and Lebanon. Syria is home to over 700,000 Druze, more than half the world's Druze population. In Israel, there are about 150,000 Druze. Most are Israeli citizens, while some are actually Syrian citizens with Israeli residency. And many of those have relatives just across the border in Syria. Some they've never been able to visit. The Syrian Druze carry deep psychological scars from Islamist aggression. In 2018, ISIS swept through Druze villages in Syria in coordinated attacks, going house to house, taking the lives of men, kidnapping women and children. Over 250 Druze lost their lives. When Assad fell, Druze communities feared they would be targeted again. Many Druze welcomed Israeli intervention. Some even called for Israel to annex southern Syria. This is huge. When fighting erupted between Druze and government-affiliated Bedouin tribes in 2025, reports emerged of atrocities against Druze civilians. Druze in Israel demanded that their government take action. Israel heeded the call. The IDF launched major airstrikes on Syrian government forces and even struck the Syrian Defense Ministry on live TV. Israel's prime minister was clear about the goal: protecting the brothers of our brothers, the Druze. Since then, tensions have eased, but Syria's Druze remain caught between two countries, their fate uncertain as Syria's future takes new shape. So, where do things stand now? Syria's new leader has taken a pragmatic approach. He met with President Trump at the White House and said Syria does not want confrontation with Israel. Most recently, the two countries have actually begun talks about security and economic cooperation. This is crazy considering that these two countries have officially been at war for over 75 years. But the threats that drove Israel into Syria haven't just disappeared. Iran is already working to rebuild its network. Hezbollah is restocking its missile arsenal. And Syria remains unstable, a patchwork of competing militias, some hostile to Israel, others simply ungoverned. Israel says it won't leave the buffer zone until Syria's south is demilitarized. And with chaos still Syria's middle name, a demilitarized south is a long way off. For now, Israel remains in Syria.